As I said, my name is Nick Ferrell. Those who actually work with me call me Nick. Most folks don't actually call me Nicholas. I've been a software engineer for a little over 15 years, a lot as a consultant, a couple times as a startup. I had my own startup and I helped build a large enterprise startup in the fintech space, but I've worked across companies from Disney to healthcare, again, across the large investment banks here in Chicago for quite some time. Most recently, though, I've been at a consulting firm called Focus, and we've been really specializing in the AI and agentic spaces. So we've released a lot of agents to production for many different companies in the short amount of time that this field has really been existing in earnest. So today, what I want to do is, based on feedback I'm getting, there's one, a little bit of hesitancy to get into the field at all, to just get started. So I want to provide the pathway from starting from nothing, very very little, maybe just an understanding or maybe hearing about some of this, to actually getting to the point where you can release your first multimodal agent, and from there giving you the pathway to make that production ready. It's yeah, this is a unique time in the industry and it's an exciting time. So I'm glad to speak on this topic at all, and especially at BITCON. When I kind of came up through my career, getting a lot of key information from folks over the years, in person and in the virtual conferences. So let's get going here. So first, you know, it's been said before, and we've seen it happen already. But the one thing I do know is that the continued use of AI will change the future as we know it. Right now, there's a lot of different directions that can go. There's a lot of different directions it's already going. Right, we're seeing that no technology we can create is without its flaws. The technology that we create inherently has our own biases in it, which from points of view of minorities in certain countries, from points of view of gaps and inequities that already exist in our society, it's almost impossible for us to build technology that removes all of those. And if we're going to get even close, we have to be conscientious about it, and every day. So right now, what I'm imploring all of you to do is be a part of that conversation, be a part of that evolution. The way AI really works, is it gives us the ability to democratize all this information. The AI doesn't necessarily care about the data that it's ingesting, right? We have to put a lot of work into helping decide what is good data and what is bad data. And here in 2025, the expertise in that field is constantly being defined and reshaped and defined again. So the best thing you can do for yourself is be sure that you're a part of the conversation and part of the evolution, whether you're an avid user and pointing out when you see things that don't quite make sense, whether you're building these tools for companies, you can make sure you're building it with equity and ethics in mind, or whether you're a voter in any market that's going to help regulate and shape how these tools are regulated in the future. And as we all know, representation in any field matters, and that's going to be doubly so for an AI tool that can work so quickly and evolve so much faster than any of our previous technology. 5 years ago, you would have had to do a ton of research. You'd have to be one of the top engineers. You would have had to, almost have a PhD in machine learning to really affect the industry and have a take on it. Today, if you know some Python and you're able to set up some accounts and you have a few dollars to your name, you can really start creating these tools, getting value, and using them right away. You could create some of those big projects in an afternoon. There's a lot we want to cover today. Here's what I want you guys to walk out with this. One, I'm gonna make the case that you definitely should start today. 2, I want you to look for ways not to reinvent the wheel. It's one of the key components of software engineering. You should know how everything works, but you shouldn't have to build everything from the ground up, right? Use what's there, use the leading tools, make your life easier. I'm going to present LangChain as one of the main ways you can speed up your development process and help your process along. We're going to go over the course concepts with LangChain and your kind of base agent system. We're going to look at a live agentic system. And then we're going to go over some notes on how can a proof of concept go to a production system. And I'm going to give you guys a lot of resources that you can follow up to enhance your journey over the next weeks. I will quickly pause in case we have questions right now. Awesome. We'll keep rolling. Okay. Again, this is something I think you should just start today. Don't wait till tomorrow. There are ways to get started today. The first of which, you can use the models that are already out here. ChatGPT is becoming a meme, a name, a tool. Everybody is talking about that. Every one of these tools is evolving. We're already on a ChatGPT 5. Not even sure if the general public is aware of that. And with each evolution, the capabilities change, the mindset can change, the tone can change, kind of what you're interacting with can change. You always fare better in this space if you have a kind of deep understanding, an innate understanding of how these models work, what they're good at, what they're not as good at, and how to get the best results out of them just by experimentation. So that kind of practice really can't be beat. The main models that I present right now is ChatGPT, which is OpenAI. Claude is the one from Anthropic. You'll hear Claude a lot in the developer space. It's still my go-to daily one for any type of code. And then Gemini is another one that was a first model that Google put out that really expanded the context window, which is how much the agents really can take into account while they're giving you an answer. Don't just use it for homework. Use it to understand code bases, use it to debug errors, use it to learn new languages. The ethics side of us, let's make sure that we're using the models for things that are not done faster and better elsewhere. Like, I don't want to waste AI resources as a calculator. We have calculators. They're very easy. They're in our browser. But do think of use cases that are relevant for your models and use them as often as you can. Step 2, use AI-powered tools. So I use Cursor and Windsurf daily as a software engineer. Any beginning software engineers or seasoned software engineers, get one of these tools, be using them in your day-to-day. Again, there are going to be rough points about them. There's oftentimes where I was using Windsurf, I stopped liking how it worked after an update, I switched to Cursor, and vice versa. Take note of what was bad about that experience, what was good. You could help make these tools better. You could have information for if you want to write your own tool in the future. And honestly, they're changing all the time. There's days where I've gotten multiple updates from one of them, and one update was bad and the next really helped me out. If you get good at this, I will say that AI-powered tools, it's the kind of thing where if you give a heavy machine a really intense drill or a very fancy tool to a very novice construction worker, you're probably going to get bad results. And the same is true for these AI tools. The more senior engineer you are, the more that these tools can help speed up your process. If you don't know enough about the core languages and the core way to build good software, these will often lead you down the wrong path or put in bugs that are hard to find. So again, getting practice with them is good, but don't shy away from the basics. They still learn all your core software engineering principles and then use the tools to help you enforce them and help you find where you could be improved. GitHub Copilot's another one that was around early, easier to integrate into other IDEs. And then there's also things like, vo.dev where you get to do your UI generation right away, just from a prompt. First, don't reinvent the wheel. As soon as we had all these AI tools and AI models we can use, abstraction started coming to play. Extractions help you save time. They're battle tested. They're robust integrations, and that is why we actually choose LangChain. It has the most tools available. It's used a lot in production systems right now. We've written our own production systems in LangChain, and we were the first boutique consulting firm to be a partner of LangChain. There are other tools out there. You're free to investigate, but LangChain's had that advantage right now, and they're continually putting work into it. All right. Now let's look at getting our first basic agent up. This diagram is what we call a React agent diagram. So the React diagram here, you can see that we'll start with the query. And as we go from the query, from the user, we're going to go into this thinking zone. That's where the reasoning is happening for your LLM. That's your mind of the system, and it's doing reasoning. You're going to add a bunch of tools that LLM can use, whether it's a weather app, a Google search, another application of your own. It could be data, the data warehouse that you have. Those are all going to be tools. The agent will reason, use some of those tools, get data from those tools, reason again until it feels like it has the final answer for the architecture, and then it'll finish with that answer. This is what we think about as the base React agent architecture. And what LangChain does is helped us extract all of these different things we could into this simple pattern where we have a set of tools, we have the LLM we're using, and we're able to chain those events together until we have a very basic architecture. All right. We'll go over to code here. All right, we'll do this. So these things will be live soon. We're not live on them yet, so I'll release this after this talk. And again, you guys can feel free to reach out to me, reach out to my company, and we'll get access to these. These are just some basic tools to get you started. What I will look at as a prerequisites, what I'm going to do is show the, let's see. I'm going to show, setup from my Mac and from some tools that I like to use. But in our, README, there's a lot of prerequisites here that'll give you ideas of how to set up your environment. Some of the things that I like to use, Homebrew, Git, everybody's probably going to use that. I like OMICSH. Python's a language that we're going to use. It's still the most popular for AI tools. Though LangChain does have a JavaScript version as well. Over time, I'm sure we're going to see more and more mainstream languages that have their own ways to do AI work and agentic work. UV is the Python manager I'm going to use, as opposed to pip, which some of you might have known is built in. This is just a little more modern, a little easier to use. And I'm in Cursor right now as my IDE. So there are, setup and instructions and things like that we can go over. But as we get into here, are getting started. We have some of these core LangChain concepts. Again, there's lots of glossaries. LangChain has a site. Our own consulting company also has a site for a lot of those. And we'll look at doing an AI research assistant. This is just, one thing that you can do an AI tool for. We could have done, calculators. We could have done, I think my company early on, we built a thing to help us pick what people wanted to eat for lunch based on the weather outside, if it had a patio, and the cuisines that folks were interested in. This tool will just be more generic, deep research and a little bit of the real world applications on it. So we have a lot of this based on the README, and we're just going to go through to get our base set up here. Now, just in the effort of time, I set up this project not too long ago, but we'll walk through what the commands are and what they mean, just so that I can get you guys basics done. And this was a good example of an error that was hard to create so that we could talk through it. So let me just get started here. Here, 1 second. Looks like we got to share one different screen. Apologies. Is that a question we got, or?
That was one of the announcements, just letting folks know that we were going to have some closing remarks at 4 today.
Yeah, that's right at the conclusion of this talk. Is that correct?
Yes. So you run right up right into that. Show us the agent goodness, please.
Yeah. All right. All right. One thing you'll learn to do whenever you start to give presentations, I want to say it's like a 75% of the time you'll have no issues, and then 25% of the time you run into all these live problems that didn't come up an hour before when you set it up. So have a backup plan, especially in the AI world where we're moving out of the deterministic software that we normally write into this much more non-deterministic world. But what we did for an existing project is go ahead and initialize a UV project. So initialize a UV Python project, which we do have commands for you guys here. This is just going to give you your initial Python project setup. It also helps with, I guess without getting too much into the weeds on it, it helps set environments for your specific project rather than use system projects. Python can get a little dicey with that. And then we're going to go ahead and add our LangChain dependencies that we need. So I already know I'm going to want to use ChatGPT. So this is my LangChain OpenAI tool. LangChain community is some base tools. Apologies there. LangChain community, some base tools. We have the Python environment, and then this is for DuckDuckGo. I use DuckDuckGo in a lot of projects, especially early on ones. It's a little bit more privacy focused as a search. It doesn't require an API key. They're not really trying to track anything. It's free. There's a lot of there you go, a lot of benefits there. You can also add Google search. You can add Bing. You can do a lot. You get different benefits for them, and also different costs. Anthropic, again, I mentioned Claude earlier. LangChain is good about having a lot of different tools you can add very easily to your projects. So after we get this set up, you can see I seeded it with a few dependencies here. I turn on the verbose just so you guys can get an insight into what it's actually doing. It'll see what ultimately we need, add a lot of the dependencies, the whole chain that you need to run that project. I went ahead and added Anthropic as well, so we can get Claude in there. Then I also created an environment file. So this is one step that you always want to have an environment file. You want to make sure it doesn't get committed to your code base. Security is going to be more and more important as we get into these AI tools. So this is where you're going to keep private keys. All right, let's close these up. And then we'll look at our base. So with our environment file, all I really have in there is the OpenAI key for now. It's a temporary key that's only going to be used for this talk, but that's where I would start to put in my secrets. In a large production project, I'm going to store those more in like a, secrets manager in AWS or, Google, wherever I was deploying my code. But for now, we're just making sure that that environment file is local to my machine and not getting pushed up to Git or anything else. This git ignore is what helps me make sure that those files are never going to be in that Git history. All right. Also in the README, as much as I tagged the prerequisites and getting started, I do have my LinkedIn in here. I have the companies. You can see our blog posts and a lot of deep dives on different of these topics. And then a lot of resources for LangChain specifically. So again, you guys will get this as well. Anybody who reaches out can share after the program. But as we get started with our first one, when you first initialize a Python script, you get this main.python. All it's going to do is give you a print. That's our first test to make sure that our code will run. So if I was going to run uv run python main pi, looks like I get my message here. So I know that these are working, my dependencies are set up correctly, I have that well. What I went ahead and did is created our research agent. So this is going to be a Python file that will help us start our research agent LLM. Here's the imports. These are the tools that we're going to use during it. A lot of times you'll build this as you go. So I'm kind of going to do it in the steps that I built this in, and then we'll make sure we have the big picture all together. Loading the environment, again, put the comments in here. This is just what gets your API keys into the correct space. Now we're going to define our tools. We know we want a web search for deep research, right? I'm going to do a search on, maybe what today is. So let's go over what our tools are first, and then we'll kind of go into each one. So for tools, we definitely want to start with a web search. That's our DuckDuckGo search run. Again, this one is nice because we don't need an API key and it is free. One part of our step is once we're doing all this research, I'm going to have to save research reports, right? I need my LLM to take all these sources in from my tools, summarize it, and save it to here. I made a very small tool in here. For instance, if I was worried about it making sure the data was current, I can be like, get the current date, and I want to use that in evaluation against our tools. This is what LangChain helps us with. This is the tool list that your LLM will have visibility to. So right now we have a web search, we have that save research tool. The description is really important. This is what your mind, the LLM you're using, this is what your mind will read to know which tool is valid for what it's trying to do. So our save research is what's going to save our final research that we've completed into that markdown file. Now our LLM, again, this is the chat that we're going to use, right? In this case, I'm going with GPT-4o Mini. It's very, very cheap. It's very, very fast for this purposes. As I went into production, we might open more, to other models. For OpenAI, this model that we're choosing, the temperature is one that we're going to use. I could give a whole talk on what the temperature is, but ultimately, it gives your LLM a sense of how creative or open-minded you want it to be. If it was 1, it's like, hey, you could get a different answer every time. It could, point out something in the research. It could kind of go down that rabbit hole a little bit deeper, kind of differently every single time it does it. For research, we found, 0.3 tends to be a good one. You want much more closer to deterministic, but you still want to be able to have that, research itself, we all know, is a little bit of a creative process. It's not just following exact steps. So this is a good number for us. And again, this is a fun thing to look into if you want to deep dive. We also are getting our API key from that environment. So this initializes the brain of our model. So that model, as we kick off from our diagram, it's really doing the deciding. You're setting up a model, you're giving it a lot of tools, and then you're mostly letting it determine which tools it's going to use and when it's done. Our prompt is what we're going to just pull in from the user input, right? So in this case, we'll just do a simple text part, but we can do this from, other UIs and UXs there. This is just creating that agent, given our LLM, given the tools we listed out, and then our prompt here. Here's some just steps. Again, I usually do verbose true for demonstrations. We'll see if it can gracefully handle errors. We'll do a max iteration. So, we're letting the LLM decide how many times it's going to loop through its tools until it feels like it's done. We're going to put a max on 15 just to make sure, it might be time, it might be cost constraints that we want to worry about. And for something as simple as this, if it's going way over 15, there's probably something off the rails and we might need to do some adjusting. We'll also give it a max execution time for our purposes. Here are, once I'm kind of setting up like some basic tools and patterns to use, I have my search, I have what my save research is going to do. It's saving research findings in a markdown file with a timestamp. The args are the content, and it returns a success message with the file name. So my save research is going to grab our file name. This is the name of the report it's going to output. So everyone's going to be called research report with the current timestamp. And here's where we have this try. Open it, write the research report, write the generated date time that we use, and then write the content from the LLM. So that's really all it's doing is saving the research. We're creating the file, naming it, putting content into the file, and then returning success or error. These are very, very, very simple tools that we're giving our LLM to use. And as we go into this helper, this is the actual helper to help research the topic using the AI agent, right? And it's just going to give you a dictionary back of results. So this is to help us know what the agent's doing. We're going to print out that we're starting research on the topic that was given. We're going to customize the query. I did put in an option like, do we want a quick search or do we want more of a comprehensive one? Oftentimes you might want that option as a user. So this is something that we're going to customize into it. Now here, this is where LangChain also helps us. The user is going to give us this topic. We as the developers writing the agent, we have the ability to craft that prompt to be better. The prompt engineering part is more and more important in this world. This is our take on improving that prompt without having just rely on straight what a user gave us. So for this, I'm giving it a pretty simple prompt. Research a following topic and provide a concise summary. But I'm going to include a few different points that are important to me. So make sure the recent and authoritative information, provide a brief overview, include 2 to 3 key takeaways, and then save that report. This being in the prompt is what keys the LLM into, oh, I know I have a save research tool based on those definitions. This is probably what I'm going to use at this step. And then I'm giving it the topic at the end. For comprehensive, you can tell that we gave it a little more direction in the prompt. We want at least 5 points. We want different perspectives and approaches. We want to think about current trends and recent developments. So from a end user point of view, I'm just giving it a topic I want to research, and I'm going to be able to tell it if I want a quick or a comprehensive search. But us as the developers, we put in what is the differentiator between that quick and comprehensive search, and that's all going into the prompt. And then here is just the running of it. So we're going to invoke with the input, and then print out when we're complete or not. This is I'm calling it step 0. This is just the main entry point for a Python file. All of you are familiar with Python knows that's how they go. If we're in our default where we're just printing, you just see if name equals main, we're going to call the main function, and that's what allowed us to print that. So if we go back to our heart of our program here, once our program starts up, we're going to print that we're an AI research assistant. We're going to say this agent can be used to research any topic or web synthesis. We have some examples in here. I have them commented out right now, but we could have just automatically sent the user into an example. But for us, we're going to go right into the interactive mode. And if there's any errors, we'll print an error. Most likely would be with the API key. So, in a basically 200 lines, we have the basis of what our research agent is. So let's go ahead and let's make this a little smaller. Let's go ahead and run this, see it in action. So all I'm doing is using UV, our Python runner, gonna type run Python, and then research agent dot Python is the name of the agent we're using. All of our data is in that one file. And you can see right now we're painting out AI Research Assistant. This agent can research any topic using the web search and synthesis. We're in interactive mode, research any topic, type your research topic, or exit to quit. Again, that's all it's doing is following exactly what we wrote here in our main, right? We're printing these lines. We print the interactive mode, type your research, exit to quit. While true, it's going to take the user input, the user research topic, converts it to lowercase, and strip out leading spaces. We're going to see if the user just tried to quit. If they did, we'll say goodbye. If they didn't, we're going to ask for that what input depth that we want. Basically, if they type quick, if the depth is quick, then we'll use quick. Otherwise, we're going to use comprehensive. And now it'll go into that research topic, right? And that research topic is our helper function that we went over before. So that's what actually kicks off what the LLM should do, gives it the prompt, and then allows it to take over from tools from there. And because we have that verbose on, we'll kind of see it thinking. So one topic that we'll do, and maybe we'll do a quick search to start, we'll give it, let's say the top, let's see, yeah, top AI searched terms. So we'll leave it at that, and we'll make sure it's a quick. And we can watch the agent run through. It has the input. It's thinking about, what these could mean. We'll go over it as it kind of prints out. It's letting you know a smart search across, code base. Again, we're kind of letting it think through, so it's kind of using all of its tools that's available. And now you can tell that it's like, okay, I need to refine my search, just focus specifically on the most relevant and recent data concerning the API search term. Some of that came from our extra prompting, right, over what the user input is. And it can tell that it's thinking the research didn't directly address the topic. So it's going to keep going into its loop using tools until it feels like it was able to summarize those topics. Here we have search terms in 2023. The keyword AI experience increased the volume over time. And it looks like we got the action to save research. Markdown report. It's giving key takeaways. And we finally got into our research report has been saved successfully, and to finish the chain. And we get our research complete, right? So that's one iteration through. Now that we get this complete research, it's asking for any other topics, right? I'm gonna try to give it the same, we'll do the same prompt for top AI search terms. But in this case, we'll go comprehensive, which again, as long as it's not quick, it'll be comprehensive. And again, like, this could have taken no time at all. And this is this initial version of our deep research tool. This is similar to if you're just using ChatGPT directly or Claude directly, right? I'm mostly passing through data directly to them. One advantage is that actual AI engineers are fine-tuning my prompt in the backend to make sure that I don't have to know everything that goes into a really good prompt. That's one advantage right away. Two, this is because we're using LangChain and because we're using these abstractions, this is a streamlined way for us to build on this for the near future. So today, even if I wanted to use this right now, I could start searching some things around BitCon 2025, right? Or for instance, on speakers. I did use something like this to just go through all the speakers and the talks and prioritize them based on my interests and, what score would I score this talk of making sure that I saw the talks that I was the most interested in. The main value add that I could add to this, it was a very similar setup to this one. However, I had another tool that instead of searching the internet, it searched my own data. So, my recent talks that I've given, my recent papers that I've written, my recent projects that I've done, I was able to have those as just one tool for the deep research to use. And AI would do my DuckDuck search and then also do a tool for searching my personal data and then give me a recommendation that is added to both. I'm hoping even now, like, you guys can start to see that, like, the more you can add these tools to these different projects, the more powerful you can make your projects. So here we can see with the comprehensive search turned on, we get a lot more data. So we get the rise of generative AI-powered search engines, different perspectives. That's one we included in the comprehensive is, don't just do that kind of agreeable, prove your own point right that AI often does, and give me different perspectives, give me challenges back and forth. And I did want it to save it to a file, right? And if we look at our code base, it did generate these new files called research reports, and it put our date timestamp on them. We could custom edit this again to include what the search terms were. But we have the research report, we have when it was generated, and we get the actual data summarized to us. Here in our basic search term, you can see that we have like a much smaller takeaway for our quick search, right? This will be cheaper, this will be faster. Sometimes this is all that you need. All right, let me switch. Okay. Again, get questions going if you have them. I'm gonna just wrap up where we're going. This is what we just showed was how to get your basic model up and going. Those LLMs we can add. I added Anthropics. I was happy to add another one to do ChatGPT 5. I've often done certain projects where I'll use two different models and then I'll take the results out of each and then have the tools compare and contrast each other, which is another way to help make sure you're minimizing hallucinations and really making sure that your data is good. But that is where a lot of companies went, and then that's where they stopped. They added more and more tools, more and more agents, and they weren't really seeing a lot of value. What our company really comes in to do is make sure that your agents are doing the piece that is the most valuable for the agents. They're not, doing things like calculators. They're not doing things that we really do need people to do. And the thing that really started to separate out the production sites from the ones that were kind of vibe coded or done very quickly in an afternoon are one, evals. We've all heard about unit testing. We know that they're valuable. Evals are what makes an AI program much more hardened, much more robust. You can minimize hallucinations. Some of these projects, like, when you're working with health data, when you're working with emergency services data, when you're working with recommendations, you need there to be no hallucinations. You need to be 100% right. When I'm working with these large banks, a small recommendation error in code could lose them millions of dollars very quickly. So we need zero hallucinations. And evals are how we do that. It's just thinking about your unit tests, your integration tests, but for the AI world. So here's one diagram we have. Again, we have different deep dives both from our site and from LangChain. But the main thing that I'll say about evals is there's ways with LangChain with these that you write prompts in order to evaluate your AI. So I'm going to have a set of offline ones of where I'm going to try to trip it up, right? I'm going to say, hey, research BitCon 2025, and I'm going to make sure that it knows that if anything comes back about Bitcoin, you did it wrong. Like, do not include anything about Bitcoin in this search. That's an example of an offline eval I'll have. I'll just have that set, and I'll keep adding those up to make sure my research is better and better. But you also are going to have online ones as well, where I'm monitoring different users using my LLM, and you all see those buttons where you can thumbs up or thumbs down results. When you thumbs down result, that's one that's going to come into this online eval, and I'm going to be able to fine tune that AI, that agentic system live with the live data that's actually coming in and make it better and better. So evals are one of the main things that separates out, some vibe coded system from more of an amateur to a real production ready hardened system. The other one is observability. So LangChain again came up with LangSmith. Observability is so important for production systems, and this is one that LangChain also makes very easy. And we won't have time to cover that in this one, but I'll leave you with that. We have a lot of blogs on this on our Focus.io website, and we're also happy. I'm personally happy to talk to folks. I like training new engineers and making people better, so I spend a lot of my time doing that. All right. I know we only have a couple minutes left. Again, please send me questions. If I can't answer them here, I will answer them in the future for those who reach out. And I appreciate you guys sticking with me and running through a lot of information there pretty quickly. Otherwise, make sure you catch the closing remarks, as I will. And I look forward to chatting with you all soon. Yeah, sorry, I'm now mentioning, that security breach, that was huge. I did build this one from scratch, and in those readmes, you can do these lines, and it will not take you very long. I plan to run through that on here, but it looks like with the bandwidth while I'm traveling, couldn't quite do both. But I'll share that out with the folks. Thanks for the questions. All right, I hope you guys reach out. Enjoy closing ceremonies. Appreciate it. Take care.